Welcome,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I think this is a topic that we can all, as we hear the story, um, that we can all celebrate together and perhaps even be encouraged in the ways that we try to engage our community or be challenged in that area as well. My name is Robby Pitt and moved back to Vermont a year ago, my wife and I, as empty nesters. And we have two adult daughters, 27 with our first grandson, and 21 and single is our younger daughter. I am planting, Kim and I, we in our community, Waterville, Vermont, about 8 miles from Smuggler's Notch. We're up in the northern part of Vermont. And I think Sandy was alluding to the weather. It's been in the low 40s here the last 2.5 days and in the 30s at night, and it's been real drizzly. So the background is quite deceptive. That was about 3 weeks ago as the leaves were first starting to change. Um, and we are planting Waterville Country Church and also are part of the BC&E team, and we are grateful to be a part of that team and be able to do things like this and and offer opportunities for pastors to develop and not just pastors but lay leaders and other leaders in the church in terms of helping to partner with and equip and encourage them as well. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. I've never actually met Aaron in person, but we've talked on the phone, and I'm looking forward to meeting Aaron and even visiting Fellowship Church down in Hooksett. So Aaron Cockrum is the pastor of Granite State, um, uh, Granite State Fellowship Church, Granite State. I got it backwards, and I know that Aaron has at least one person tuning in who is at first I thought maybe that was a note from my wife, but in the chat, Linda Cockrum, proud of you, hubby. So I'm glad that you've got some support tonight, Aaron. Come on in and and join us. And thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Oh, well,
And
thank you
just
for having me. I'm
tonight,
excited to visit.
yeah, just tonight before we went live, you were sharing some new things and new ways God is blessing and giving opportunity. But I wanted to kind of try to lay a foundation for this. So rather than starting right where you are today, I'd like to. I was intrigued, to be honest. So I'd like your story a little bit, a little bio. But I read on your bio on the church page, this first line really captured my attention. The first 40 years of my life, I walked in denial of God for the first 40 years of my life. And I'm wondering how old are you now? And and just tell me your story a little bit, if you would.
Well, I'm old enough to not be this old. I'm 47, just turned 47 this past summer. And so yeah, just a quick 30,000 foot view. So I was an atheist up until about 7 years ago. As a matter of fact, my rebirth day is coming up here on November 12th. But walked in denial of the Lord, walked in rebellion, truly did not believe there was a God, because I'd never experienced a church that reached out or encountered or tried to encounter me. And so I just kind of fell into that trap of what society is really pushing nowadays, and that, especially in our schools and in this with science and just the secularism that's taking over. I just fell into that trap that the enemy is using, and so did not believe in God. And when I say I didn't believe there was anything. I thought when we died, it was it. There was nothing else. Not there might be something bigger. That just the time we had was by miraculous random events that led to this moment, and then it was over. And God used a really close divorce with me and my wife to bring me to my knees and before Him. And so, long story short on it, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail on it because there's things that are much more exciting to talk about. But I was a union iron worker for 25 years. We didn't have insurance that would cover counseling. My wife wanted a divorce right after our 10-year anniversary because I was not the husband I should have been. It's because I didn't know what a husband was supposed to be. I thought I did, but I didn't know truly how I was supposed to live as a husband. Of course, we know God's word tells us how we're to live as husbands. But I didn't know that. And so the local church in my hometown, which is also called Fellowship Church back in Kansas City, Missouri, Greenwood, Missouri, actually, on the south side of Kansas City, uh, they had been involved in the community and they'd coached a baseball team. And so I thought, well, I'd coached a baseball team. I knew them. Churches are supposed to help people. And even though I didn't believe it, we went and sought help. Maybe they could point us to counseling. Through that, I was able to hear the gospel clearly for the first time in my life. And that was in August, early August. By November, God had reconciled me and my wife, and he'd also reconciled me to himself. And he drew me to him. And I prayed to receive Christ in November, like I said, November 12th of 2017. And from there, it was just a whirlwind. It was been amazing.
A lot's happened since then.
A lot has happened in a short period of time. It sure seemed like it'll take a long time, but a lot's happened. Yeah, I went from being saved to I remember telling my wife in like February, I believe it was, of 2018 that I keep having this dream about like walking down an aisle and I don't dream and joking. She says, "You're gonna be a pastor." And I'm like, "No, that ain't gonna happen." Uh so I went and talked to my pastor and he encouraged me and he helped to guide me and said, "Yes, let's see what God does with you. God uses the most broken." And through that, I went out and went evangelizing and didn't even know what it was, but fell in love with it. And it's my heart of evangelizing and reaching other lost people. Preached my first sermon almost a year to the date of being saved. Enrolled in seminary where went for both my master or my bachelor and my MDiv at the same time while working full time and helping to replant a church just south of our main campus. So it was a long 4 years through the process, and we decided that we would do something easy and plant a church in New Hampshire. So
Quick 30,000-foot view of how that came to pass.
how that came to pass. Well, I came up here in 2019 with the seminary on a study tour. So Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, they alternate. On odd number years, they tour through New England, and on even numbered years, they tour through Old England across the pond. I had an opportunity to get class credit for 2 classes, and for the same money, I got to take a trip for 9 days in New England. And I thought, why not? I've only been to Connecticut one time for 2 weeks when I was in fourth grade. Uh, I wanted to see it and see where all these things that I was learning, because I never knew about the Haystack prayer meeting. I never knew about Jonathan Edwards or George Whitfield, and I get to come see it. And along with the history I grew up with, of course, in Boston and all over New England, the Revolutionary War. And so, yeah, I jumped on it and came up, and we spent 9 days, and I had an amazing interaction with a gentleman in Boston. We blinked through New Hampshire, literally. We never even stopped. We stopped in every state except New Hampshire. I think we stopped the truck stop was about it. Uh, but I had this interaction with a guy in Boston, 50, 55 years old, and we talked for 45 minutes on down at the subway. And I was sharing the gospel and walking through the Roman road and walking through John 3. And I remember as he's praying for Christ and he's crying, he says, "How come nobody's ever told me this before?" And my heart hurt because I thought, that's me. Nobody ever told me before. But I went home and I told my wife, my heart hurts for New England, but I'm not called to go up there because I tell you I'm not called because it's cold and I've been an iron worker for 20 some odd years. We're praying for Fiji. So we're somewhere warm. And I said, and I don't want to go plant a church because they were really kind of pushing towards planting. And I'm like, I just feel called towards the revitalization, the rejuvenation of a church. And there's plenty of churches down here where I can preach and evangelize and engage. And that was in June. In the end of July, my home pastor said, "Well, we'd like you to go to the North American Mission Board's assessment program for church planting." I'm like, "I don't want to plant a church." He's like, "Well, there's funding there also for replanting," which is what they were doing, revitalization. I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And about a week before we went to the assessment, I told my wife, I said, "I think God's calling me to New England to plant a church." And she's like, "No, we talked about this." And I'm like, "Well, you better talk to him because I can't tell you." And so we prayed about it, and God opened all the doors and shut all the doors that needed to. And so that was man, it's been a whirlwind. Saved in 2017, trip in 2019, sold our house in April of 21, and bought our house here in Hooksett, New Hampshire, sight unseen, other than through Facebook Messenger, and moved up here in August of 21. And so we've been here a little over 3 years now.
That is incredible. Now, how old were your kids when you came to faith 7 years ago?
Well, let's see. My oldest son would have been just before his 10th birthday.
Okay.
So it would have been nine, like nine, seven, 9, 7, and 5. My wife just texted me. There, she's better with the math than I am. So
Yeah, that was kind of a curve because I do the math in my head. I'm like, uh,
yeah.
wow. So big time change, fast track that you really didn't realize you were on. And your wife is on this fast track journey. And I'm just curious, just a little bit, because I think it's important. Um, you're not that far away from free faith. And there had to be some kind of incubator at the church you were part of that nurtured you, that helped you grow as a husband, as a dad, as a Christian, and to get to this point where in not very long you were at seminary, and then not very long after that you were at the North American Mission Board Assessment Center. And so, can you tell me just a little bit about the church you were part of there?
So my home church is it's an amazing place. It truly was a blessing. So the town I that we came from, Greenwood, Missouri, it's a town of about 5, 6,000 people, but it's a suburb of Kansas City. So the town right next door, which you don't even realize you've crossed, is 90,000. And then of course Kansas City is, a couple 100,000. So but this town only had two churches. One I really think was just a polling center. It was a small little church that I've never saw anybody. Our church was a revitalization miracle. This church, because of an unfortunate sin incident that happened about 13, 14 years ago, they were ready to close doors. And God used a larger church across state lines on the Kansas side to revitalize them. And through that, they really ingrained the same vision we have of engaging in the community because they had to overcome that. In a town of 5,000, people knew what happened and you couldn't hide from it. And even though it was a new body of people there, and there was like 25 of them when they relaunched this, they were really intentional about engaging, and it was through that engagement that they reached me. I mean, the reason I didn't know Jesus before this because the church never reached out. It was simply a building that was over there, just over on the hill. I saw them in my hometown. We had all the same churches, but this church actually engaged. They didn't try to come preach at me. They didn't try to come proselytize me. They came and just loved on me and used opportunities to share the gospel when God opened those doors. And then once I got in there, I mean, it's a miracle now. This church went from 30, they're 13. I think they just had their 13th or 14th anniversary there. There are two campuses and just released a third one. They're running 1,200 people or so. I mean, God has been amazing and with them, but I was surrounded with people that wanted to see me thrive. It wasn't, hey, you said a prayer, you got a bath, here's a Bible, good luck. It meant they poured into me and my wife and my kids through discipleship, intentional one-on-one discipleship, through Sunday schools, through helping me through seminary, my home, the pastor there, even with the growth it had, I knew I could go to him with questions from seminary, and he would help walk me through when I had struggles and all. And they took every opportunity because they wanted to see disciples that went out. They wanted to see people not just set in seats. They wanted to see them also engage in their community. And while it kind of threw them for a curveball, I remember when I mentioned about New England, they kind of looked at us kind of funny. But when North American Mission Board backed us a year after that, I remember my pastor coming and telling me, he goes, well, we always knew we'd plant churches. We just didn't know it was going to be in New England, but we're there with you. And they have been our biggest cheerleader and our biggest supporter and our biggest provider this whole time.
So the value as a well, currently as a 7-year-old in the faith, um, you learned. I'm because you finished that last kind of sentence off with about the community engagement, and just going again back to your back to the church website early on. Or no, actually, this is from our conversation. You said, I'm just looking forward to speaking about tonight. I'm just looking forward to sharing how important and how possible community engagement is, many pastors have this idea that community engagement is difficult or can't be done effectively. And we have seen it is and can be when we become part of the community. And I underline those four words several times. You were seeing that demonstrated, lived out, probably joined in, engaging your community there in Kansas City area. And so that, as a 7-year old in the faith now, that was kind of built in pretty early on to
Yes.
be who you are. Is that kind of?
No, it was. I mean, it was, again, it was the only reason. If they had not lived that out, if they had been like every other church that I'd seen, that was just a building that, my hometown, I grew up in a town, North Kansas City, that about the same size, and they had the same 5 churches that all towns have. And the only time they ever got new people indoors was because you were a Baptist from another town and you moved into that town, or
Mm-hmm.
you were Methodist, whatever. That's the only reason they didn't engage. They didn't go outside their walls. This church did. And so from the beginning, man, they have a live to bless mentality, the same as we have a live to bless mentality. How can we be a blessing in our towns? And so for us, it's at the DNA of who we are. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. I'd still be walking in denial.
Well, one thing I like about that, Aaron, is you don't really have to unlearn anything
No, no,
in the faith, and that was how you were nurtured.
yeah, no, there's nothing to unlearn, and really, it's the basics of Christianity. It's
Mm-hmm.
loving on your neighbor as you would love yourself. It's taking care of the poor, taking care of the widows. It's doing what the church was called to do. We somewhere, and from someone who looks from outside, and I see church in a different light, not saying better or worse, but I see it in a different light than someone who was raised in the church their whole life. Standing on the outside, all I saw a church cared about was the church. And for us, we want to care about something more than the church. And it's at the heart of our vision of being a church for the city, for the kingdom. And I've shared with you that vision comes out of Jeremiah 29, especially verse 7. But in this, God's talking to the exiles. He sent this, Jeremiah sent this letter, and he's telling them, you're going to be there. You're going to be there for 70 years. But while you're there, he says, build houses. He says, plant gardens, marry, make wives and husbands, give your kids over. He says, become part of that. And then in 29:7, he says, seek the welfare of the city where I have exiled you and pray to the Lord on their behalf. For in their welfare, you will find yours. And so we have been living that mentality out. How can we be a benefit to the community? How can we be seen as something more than just a building, especially when you don't have a building? You have to be seen as something more than a building. And that's what we've been really living out, and our team lives out every day is how can we be a blessing in the town of Hooksett?
That's one of my favorite passages, that Jeremiah, there were prophets telling them, oh, this is going to be like just 3 months, summer vacation, then you'll get back home. And God had Jeremiah pen the letter, and it was a very different story.
Yeah.
Um, I love that so much. So you land last August, the 23rd?
No, we moved here in August 5th or 6th of 21.
Okay, okay.
And then we spent 6 months just settling in. We didn't know where God was even going to put us. We
Mm-hmm.
served for a short period through the North American Mission Board. We've served for a short period with the church in Nashua, which is, on the south side of New Hampshire, right on the border of Massachusetts. And in Hooksett, for those who may not know, we're like a suburb of Manchester. So we're on the north side. We bought our house just figuring, and we can travel. We don't know where God's going to put us, but we're from the Midwest. Everything is huge. All 6 states in New England fit in the state of Missouri. So we're used to things being big and driving. We'll move, we'll do whatever it is. But God very quickly showed us that he had us buy this house because this is where he wants us in Hooksett. And so we shifted from Nashua to a church in Faithbridge Church in Manchester with Rich Clegg. And truly they were blessings to us because Nashua is very Boston-esque, and where we're at, we're more of the traditional kind of New Hampshire live free or die area.
Mm-hmm.
And Faithbridge fit that. And we started just getting involved and engaging with our community in any way we could, because that's what we were looking for. We wanted to be seen without being recognized. And that was our goal.
Well, start kind of laying the well, we've got the foundation, but start laying out the what God is doing. How did you where did you start?
Well, I tried to make a connection somewhere. So our bicentennial was that year, 22, in the town of Hooksett. So they had a committee, and I thought I'd try to plug into that. Didn't really go anywhere with that, but it opened doors to other connections. And so I reached out to the town engineer, and I told him, I said, "Hey, I've got mission teams. We're not even launched. We're still a year from launching." But I said, I've got mission teams that want to come up, people that want to come up, and they just want to serve your town. We just want to do things to make the town better. Whatever it is, I'm not looking for you to give me anything. I don't want money. I don't want you to go proclaim to everybody. We did it. What can we do? And we talked for 30, 40 minutes, and he made connections for us. But when we got done, he told me, he said, "I want to thank you." He goes, "I've been here for 20 some odd years. I've never had a church ask how they can bless the town, how they can do things for the town." And I said, "Well, we want to change that. We want to live that a little differently." And that opened the doors to engaging through Kiwanis. They were already doing it. See, when the church left, the community came in and filled the positions. And so they already were doing food pantries and clothing closets and stuff that the church was supposed to do. So instead of trying to start something new, we're like, let's just meet them where they are. We'll bring some people and we'll serve. And we started serving. Our first serving event was we picked up trash on the side of a road. We printed up a bunch of blue shirts that said Fellowship Church Granite State on them. It may have said Granite State Gospel or whatever our first name we were thinking of was. I can't remember. We had these blue shirts on. It said "Live to Bless" on the back, and we walked up and down city streets picking up trash. And don't know if anybody noticed us at the time, but it started this snowball of people noticing us. And Kiwanis invited us back to the next event. And then the next group invited us. And then the city Parks and Rec, they're like, "Could you bring people up to paint?" And I'm like, "Yes, I got people who can paint your dugouts." We painted dugouts. We painted concession stands. We painted their main building there where they keep their equipment. We just tried to bless the town in any way we could. We had we rented out the local town hall gymnasium and had we call them family nights out, fun nights out, something to do, because nobody warns you when you come from the Midwest or anywhere else that it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in New England.
Yes, it does.
And so that was a big
Long
shock
way.
for us. But everybody like huddled down, and we saw the biggest need in our community was community. People weren't doing anything. And so we started just anything we could. Man, we don't know what we're doing. We're just throwing darts and seeing what sticks. And if it sticks, we run with it. If it doesn't, well, we pick our dart up and throw it at something else. But it's opened doors to where now we are hosting events. We are running bigger events. The town comes to us. People come to us, and not because anything of who we are, or it's just because of what we've done. We've lived out our faith, and we've loved on the town, and we couldn't do it alone. Our team does it, our group, and we went from about 11 people at launch. We've been up to 35, 40 people, running about 30, 35 right now, but our people are committed to it. But we've also realized I can't just connect with BC&E churches because there's only 24 in the state of New Hampshire. And I can't just connect with Southern Baptist churches because there's even less than that. So we connected with gospel preaching churches in our town. And through that, we have made a connection. I've got men that I meet and pray with. One is an SBC church, but one is an independent Baptist. One is a Nazarene. One is a Presbyterian. We pray together and we serve together. I wanted to do trunk or treat. Before we launched, I'm like, I want to do a trunk or treat. We did it at home, and I don't have a building. So we found the Apple Cinema here, and we asked, can we use your parking lot? Can we rent it? They're like, you can use it. And that first year, between all 5 churches, I think we brought 40 cars. We had 2,000 people show up. And every year since, we've had 2,000 people. We're planning on 2,500 to 3,000 people this year. And as the churches come together as the body of Christ, we just engage in our community and love on them. And it's been amazing. I can go on and on the stuff that God has really done.
Sometimes you hear something like that and you're thinking, okay. But I'm curious. The first guy you were talking to, you probably said who he was. but that 35 minute conversation, um, I'm kind of shocked, but at the same time, I'm not, that somehow God had prepared his heart, whether he knows it or not, to actually respond to you. And I, talk about that for a minute. I mean, a lot of times people would say, well, thank you, but I think we're okay.
I haven't had much follow up with him since. What we found is a lot of the people that we've engaged with, they're open to the idea of a church to an extent, but
Mm-hmm.
they become very hesitant and very cautious. Even like with the town council, I have never had to work so hard to give free labor and money away in my life.
Okay, so okay, okay, keep
It's
going.
it's a challenge. They're open to hear, but they become hesitant because they think you're going to want something. And so
Mm-hmm.
even with him, he heard it and he was open, but he was very hesitant to go much further. And I haven't had much with him, but we've seen other conversations that open. Our town administrator, man, we thought we had the inside line with this man. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs. He worked in our town we came from. We like this guy is going to be, and it was nothing because they hear church and they stop.
Mm-hmm.
But because we've engaged, because we've served, and they see that, man, I don't want anything from you. I tell people time again, I don't want to, the schools, I don't want to use your building. I don't want to preach. I don't want to hand Bibles out even. I just want to come and love on you guys and serve. God will open the doors for me when we have that, for my team when we have that, to have conversations. And through relational evangelism, we have built more opportunities to have gospel conversations. Through painting dugouts and buildings, we got to have gospel conversations with the whole Parks and Rec team and got to share the gospel with them. But it took that relational side to get there. It's not a one and done, but it's doable.
You know, before we went live, we were talking, and I can't remember what the context, but you said something about faithful and little, and we were talking about that passage in Luke 16 where Jesus is talking, and even before he says, "If you're faithful with little," he says, "If you're faithful with what belongs to someone else," and rather than try to initiate, start a lot of different things, you guys connected to what they were already doing, and I would guess that that had some kind of an impact.
It did because so many people, what we've seen as we've gone through this, we've become known as the church that it's everything. And even talking to these other churches, they're like, I'm jealous because we've never had the open doors that you have. God opened up doors through these initial connections, through serving at a Kiwanis event and then serving at another Kiwanis event. He opened the door to the talk with the fire department and the police department. And we've got people of peace in there, and they don't have chaplains. And we've been praying about it and working with them and engaging with them and visiting, and to where here just a few weeks ago, they actually the local firefighters union brought myself and my wife on as their chaplain. And we met them last night. But it's when they see that, man, you're intentional and you're not trying to sell me. And New Englanders, more than anybody I've ever seen, they can sniff out baloney. And if you're trying to be fake or phony with them, man, they know. If you're trying to sell them something, they know. And we have had, just because we're just being honest with them. We're being, man, I just want to visit with you. I just want to talk with you. How can I help you? What can I do to bless you? That now we have the town, like I said, they reach out. I'm not trying to toot horns. Our church won the Community Impact Award for being the entity that had the greatest impact in our community this year. It's the first time a church has ever received that. It's not because we did anything other than we just lived out our vision of being for the city. We serve at every event we can. And this is for other pastors. I want to, man, encourage you. Don't give up if the door doesn't open up, if it's a little tough, because let them see that, man, you just want to love on them. You just want to serve them because they don't understand that. We found they ask, why do teams come up from Midwest? Why are they taking their own vacation time, their own money to paint our buildings, to go pick up our parks? Why? And we get to use that to share the gospel. But once you can get that foot in the door with them, they seek us out. When someone has an accident or death at town hall, they call us. they reach out to us. The police and fire, they reach out to us when they had something happens. They've come looking. I just spoke with the town councilman today. The town is looking to shift a program that they were doing where they were checking in on shut-ins. And they want to shift that out of the town's hands and into an entity. And they asked if we would do that. And I'm like, well, yes, that's what we should be doing as a church. And just to see this shift the biggest compliment we have had is people say the church is vital. The gentleman that stood before the the board of aldermen and said Fellowship Church is an absolute godsend to Hooksett because we care about the place, not just about ourselves.
What's the quote? You've probably heard it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And that sounds sort of what's happening there. With regard to your family, with all this change in 7 years, can you take a few minutes and just tell me how the transition has been for your family? And then we're going to get to the church community. But I mean, are your kids saying, "Who's that man?" You know, what happened?
It's been amazing. I was definitely not the father I should have been, and I lost a lot of years with my sons in those first years because I wasn't, and so really trying to change those things. But God has done amazing things. So my oldest is now almost 17 years old. He's taller than I am. He's got way too much testosterone and eats way too much food. But love him to death. My middle son, all three of my boys, they're amazing, and they have done so amazing with this. When we went to them at first and told them we were looking, because I never lived more than an hour from where I was born. I've lived my whole life there. My wife was over on the Kansas side, but still same thing. That's all my boys knew. All their family, their friends. And we told them, my oldest son was like, Dad, they've got deer and they got moose and they got beaches and they got mountains, and yeah, let's go. My youngest son, he really didn't mind. My middle son struggled because he's like, I'm leaving my grandparents and I'm leaving my friends and everything I've known. But God has blessed us with a community for them. He's blessed an amazing Christian church school up the road that we send them to, where they've got friends and they are being poured into. Our church body's poured into them. My wife has been surrounded by women that pour into her and she can pour into. And it is just, I mean, God, everything we thought we were losing, God has brought back tenfold for us. And it's been amazing. And so everybody's settled in, and we're still learning some of the quirks of New Englandness, but we're finding ourselves to be more and more acclimated. It was actually an encouragement from my heart. The last time my boys went home back to Kansas City, they weren't there very long. They're like, we want to go back home. This isn't home anymore. They wanted to come back up here. And so to know that God has really worked on their hearts here and to see them plug in and serving in the church, and my wife and what God's doing with her. And she's a chaplain for corporate America also. So she works at a big plant out in Dover 1 day a week to minister to the secular. God is just doing amazing things. And my family is so blessed. It's unbelievable.
So as a family, you guys well, you're definitely all in it together because you're all there. But has that afforded family opportunities to as someone that's a serial church planter? I know a bit about those early days, and with the six of you total, with your wife and the kids, has everyone found kind of opportunities or ways to be involved and help out?
Yeah, there's five of us, unless you know one that I don't know about. I mean, we were counting the dogs early on, but yeah, but no, everybody's plugged in. So we realized as we were getting ready to launch, and we decided, okay, we're going to launch in March of 23, March 26th, and we had the date, and God provided a location in Town Hall in the gymnasium.
In a New England town, in Town Hall, that must cost a fortune.
Let's just say that it is a blessing how much we make, and or how much we have to pay for it. And I don't want to jeopardize that, but it would make everybody nauseous to know that it's all but free.
In a happy way, happy nausea.
In a happy nausea. It's truly a blessing, but it wasn't the fact that we get to meet in a town hall. Nobody does that in New England. We get to use the town, and we have pretty free reign with it. But we can talk about that later. But we realized that if we're going to launch, we're going to need to do music. And what are we going to do for music? We didn't have a whole lot to choose from. We've got a woman that she plays piano beautifully, and she does all our closing hymns for us. She does an amazing job. But what else are we going to do? We're just going to do traditional hymns or what? And so my wife, she's like, well, I played the piano for years. I'll pick it back up. And she picked the piano back up. And I'm like, well, I played the guitar up into my early 20s. I'll pick it back up. My son's like, well, I'll learn the bass, and he picked it up. And lo and behold, it was the Partridge Family worship, and
Oh no.
it's been a joyful noise many a times to the Lord. But it's been great. God's bringing more people in. We've got more people singing and more people that can play instruments, and that's great. But it's really been a time for drawing close. And even my middle son sings. My youngest son plays the piano once in a while and sings, just to see our family be able to be drawn closer together with that aspect. And my, when you're young, a young church, you got to use everybody everywhere. So my middle son's our soundboard guy, and we've got more people coming in with that. And my oldest son helps with setup and tear down and I mean, I'm truly blessed with it. My family is all in on this.
So, as you began to prepare to launch and develop a band, um, where'd the people come from that would become part of the initial launch?
So our initial team consisted of a few people that left from Faithbridge, and Faithbridge, Pastor Rich Clegg again, and he is one of the most kingdom-minded people I've ever met, and open-handedly a church that's trying to revitalize after 2020, like everybody was, and the fact that they would bring in a church planner and walk with them, knowing that some people were going to leave, is just unbelievable. And God has blessed them more than what they lost for sure. But so we brought a few of the people from that team came with us, and then we had to do some of our events. We had a few other families that joined us, and that became, we started off with just people from Faithbridge as a Bible study the summer of 22, and then it grew from there as we went. And so we launched, we launched with about it might have been closer to 13 people, 12, 13, and most of them are there. We've had some families that have shifted. I mean, that happens as a church grows and all, but from there, it's been our engagement in the city has where we've seen people coming in as they hear about the church at Town Hall, and they want to come see that, oh, this is a church that is at every event. This is a church that helps at everything. This is a church that we see their shirts and their people everywhere. We want to go see what it's about. And it's been awesome.
If Let me just interject here. If you have a question for Aaron, please type it into the chat, because I can ask a million questions and maybe not get to where you're hoping this would go. I've lost track of time, and I'm enjoying the conversation. But as you're getting ready or preparing to type some, oh, wait a minute, it says 12 new messages.
Yes, I actually saw someone did ask what's our follow-up for. I'm guessing that was back with our trunk or treat. So we have tried the collecting email routines, and we've tried sending out emails. We have multiple events where we collect them. We do take them when we send out some stuff. They don't ever bring any fruit. We haven't seen that from it. What we do is, because there's 5 churches, we use the opportunity to bless the Apple Cinema, because they give us the place for free. We give away some of their we buy some passes to movies, and we give them away. Use that as an opportunity to get an email so we can contact, pray for people and all. But whether it's that, or we started doing Easter egg hunt, because our town didn't really have an Easter egg hunt, and we had almost 800 people this past year as we give out 10,000 Easter eggs, and we collect names and all there. We've had one person come in. We realize that in New England is the only place where you can have 800 people show up on Saturday and nobody walk in your church on Sunday. And that's okay, because it's not through those follow-up. It's like we've got a gentleman whose family has joined us now. Their first connection with us was at the trunk or treat, and then it was almost a year later. We've had a woman she came when we went caroling, and we just opened up like, anybody wants to come caroling with us. Almost a year later, she came in.
There's a residual effect there that
it is multiple times. It's that. Yeah.
Let me see. There's a couple of questions here, and I was going to ask a similar question. what would be a good on ramp to become part of the community? And in this particular case, previous leadership, I'm guessing, at that church had burned some bridges, and that's God can do something with that, but that's a tough one to have. Essentially that's your T-shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
That the church that burned some bridges. But if someone were to ask you for advice about a church prioritizing, and it sounds like your initial group was aware because they saw what you guys were doing, had been a part or would attend, and that's continuing even with residual impact. But how do you respond in terms of how someone should start out? How do you know where to jump in? What are some questions that you ask to discover that?
For us, we just wanted to try to get our foot in the door somewhere because it is hard. And if you've got that burden of burnt bridges behind you, it's tough because they are hesitant. Our home church had that. Like I said, they had the scandal that was there, and the only thing they could do was they had to humbly come in and said, "We will do literally anything." And you have to develop that in your people's hearts too, that there is nothing that is too low or too beneath to show the love of Christ to somebody. And so if that means, I mean, guys, we have literally gone and picked dog poop up out of parks. And we've spent our time doing that because we want to show we really care about the town. And it's those slow and consistent interactions because man, I sent email after email after email and there was nothing and it was silence. And I would go up and I would visit at town hall and I would just make my presence known and just them seeing time and time again helps to open eyes. I remember the first time I went to one meeting and because they just don't know. I was there and a pastor from another church showed up for the meeting and they were like, "Oh, there's two pastors here. So do you guys like have to fight now or something?" We're like, "I don't even know this guy." And now he's one of my greatest confidants here and meet, like I said, meet, pray with him on a biweekly basis. But just that intentionality, they've got to see, man, that you're not going to give up until they let you bless them, until they let you serve them. And they're going to tell you no. They're going to say, "No, we're okay. No, we don't need it." I guarantee you, wherever you're at is like every other town that's up here. They don't have enough staff. They don't have enough people working Parks and Rec. They don't have enough people working at Public Works. They have stuff that is going neglected because they can't fill it. And they just need to be persuaded to swallow their pride and say, "Okay, we're going to let this church do it. No strings attached, no
I'm going to
expectations."
say that again because I think that's a real key thing right there. Because my guess is they're a little suspicious. They're wondering about motives. But you just said that thing about the bait and switch. Can you say that again or address that just a moment?
They have to see that there's nothing. You're not holding there's no expectations out of what you're going to do. Like I said, I've never worked so hard to give away. I had to go before the town council. I had a group of people. They were landing on a Thursday or Thursday. It was Wednesday night. I had a team coming in specifically to paint buildings in town, and I had to go get permission from the town council. And they were like, "Why are you doing this?" Or they were asking the public works, "Why are we doing this? Are we just making work for a church? Are we just wasting money? Yada yada." And they told them what I just said. We needed to do this 6 years ago. We can't do it ourselves, and they're offering free labor. Why wouldn't you? And so then I got to get up and share with them. I'm like, "Guys, I don't want anything. I don't want you guys to give me anything. I don't want money. I don't want you to recognize me. I want our people to come. We want to come and bless you and serve you and just make this town better." And once they realize that, once they see that there's no strings attached, you're not after anything else, then they start letting that guard down. And they don't, when they hear Fellowship Church, they're like, "Yeah, it's good." They don't ask questions. They just kind of, like I said, give it to the point where, guys, because of the relationships we've built. Like I said, I don't have a building, but we have a town hall that we use. They let us use the front half of town hall. It's the old school that nobody uses for free. That's where we host our Sundays or our Sunday schools. It's where we host our youth. It's where we host our midweek services. because we have loved this town, because we've painted buildings, because we've served things that churches just don't do. We churches kind of have this mindset that they have to meet this, this, and this. Guys, we just have to go be the hands and feet of Christ. Go and serve and not be served. Love on them, and it's opened so many doors. But I didn't give up. I kept going. Our team doesn't give up. We keep talking to the same people over and over at every event, and they know us, and they know we're coming. Like, oh, here they come again. But we keep telling them, what can we do for you? Not, hey, can I tell you about Jesus? After we ask them what we can do for them, and they start talking to us, then we can tell them about Jesus, and it's led to great gospel conversations.
So that's building trust, building credibility, no bait and switch. What about other than the community welcoming your efforts now and even approaching you, for example, the shut-ins? What and allowing you to rent the town hall is pretty huge. But other evidence that God is kind of in on this and maybe changed hearts, that kind of thing. What are some things that you all are seeing?
Well, again, it's the interactions with people in our community. Like I said, we don't have a building, and so we do everything we can in public. And that's opened eyes, and that's opened opportunities to share. Our women's Bible study, we meet at a public cafe, a little cafe, and we patronize them. We help to support them, and they get to see the women every week, and the women ask them, how can we pray? And that's building relationships, leading to conversation. The men meet there for our Bible studies. They're serving in town. We do a basketball VBS, and the people in town are like, we love hearing the kids in the gym. We love seeing this back in here. And it's just, we have seen so many hearts soften simply by just loving on, simply just engaging. We've got a server at a local restaurant here that from one of the first days we were up here, me and my wife were eating, and we asked her, how can we pray for you? Something that simple. How can we pray for you? That now every time she sees us, she was so taken back that she can't wait to tell us, oh man, this is what's going on. This is how you can pray for me. This is what's going on with my kids. And this is now 3 years going. Sometimes they come in. Sometimes we have seen families that come in. We have seen some people come in. It is slow. I mean, it is New England. We know this, but the relationships aren't necessarily, while we're not seeing the growth numerically that, we would dream of, we're seeing in the Sunday morning, we are seeing growth there. We're seeing growth outside of Sundays. We're seeing growth on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays as we engage in the public, and they want to engage with us. They want to hear, and it always leads the same question: why? Why would you do this for us? Why are you doing this? And that leads to the gospel. And I'm of the mindset, I don't care if someone comes to faith because I led them or because I planted a seed, as long as they come to faith at some point. Let's just go out and plant some seeds. Let's share some hope with them. And we're seeing this shift from the church is something to be hesitant about to the church is something that is important. And that's the steps we need to see the growth that we're looking for.
Well, that's a huge step, just to where the in New England we see this a lot, that the church is considered to be, not just quaint and overly moral, but maybe now harmful or dangerous to a community. And not only that, but they're immoral because they are judging people. They're saying this and that, and so just to have a positive sense of a church or a group of people, because like you say, you don't have a church building, so their picture of church are you all.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say it is, and the exciting part about it is because we have now started receiving the blessing, if you want to call it that, from the entities in town, the fire department, police department. They have old home days the first Tuesday in August, and we swarm it with the mission team, 40 people there serving. And the police love it, and they're like, we want them here, and fellowship's important and they let the town know that, and town hall saying yes, they're important, we want them here. People are now they're more willing to listen because it's not me trying to tell them that it's important. It's, hey, this is somebody I trust saying this. So let's hear what they're talking about. And they see it through either our blessing baskets that we do at Thanksgiving. They see it through our Easter egg events, through serving at one of the umpteen different outreach events that other people do that we don't even do. We just come and like I said, they let us set booths up, but it's like we want to help set up. We set up other people's booths. We tear down other people's booths. And people are like, man, I can't believe a church would do that. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. That's opening these doors. But
Are the folks at church, are they encouraged, or are they thinking, wow, this has been great, but we're not seeing this or that? Where you frame that really nicely with, someone sows the seed, someone else waters, but God brings the increase, God brings the harvest. Is your group encouraged?
I think that we are encouraged, and we try to keep that encouragement up because we do see this pendulum effect of up and down with coming in, and we see new ones, and then we see families that have been and they kind of have fallen away because it's busyness of life, whatever it is, sets in, and try to encourage them again. Same thing we talked about earlier, that every person that comes in is exactly who God wants. And if we can't be faithful when God sends 15 people, if we're going to say, well, this is a waste of time, why are we doing it? Why is God ever going to send us 50 people or send us 100 people? We've got to be faithful with these few. And so our team, man, they're excited when we see new people come in. One thing I love about our church is a welcoming, loving, friendly church. You can't come in and not get noticed. They know that a person who is by themselves is a problem. We need to go engage them. We need to go visit with them. And because they're excited and they build that excitement of new people coming in and they can see the vision. We keep the vision. I end every service with, then this is our vision. This week I asked them, and this ain't nothing new. I believe Sean Sears says it too, but I asked them, I'm like, how many people here know someone they're close to that is far from God? And everybody raises their hands. I said, now how many empty seats do we see in this church? I'm not going to stop asking you until nobody puts their hands up anymore. Let's keep living this out. Let's keep living this vision out. And people are excited to get out there and to serve and to see people have the opportunity that they may never had. New Englanders remind me a lot of how I was. I thought I was a good person. They think they're good people. They're on a road that goes to hell because nobody told them otherwise. Mm-hmm. We're trying to lay the groundwork to be able to tell them otherwise.
So instead of me asking you a question, because I'm sure there's so many things that have crossed your mind or you would like to share, but what would be something or some things that I haven't asked you and that you think are kind of important to the folks listening and the folks that'll watch this later?
I would say probably one of the most important things that we learned as we started this, and it's not new. Like I said, there's nothing new. I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly, I don't. I've never planted a church before. I'm new to faith, obviously, but I know that there's importance with persistence and to keep pushing forward and to keep that vision at the forefront. And so I want to encourage wherever you are and whatever your ministry looks like, whether you're a church plant or your church has been there for 200 years, and do whatever it takes to engage your community in a way that they say that church is important. That church is vital. If they weren't here, we'd lose something. And once you can live that out, the doors that God will open up. But like I said, it can be easy to become discouraged and go, man, we've been trying now for months and I can't get town hall to respond back. I can't get the Parks and Rec to answer back. You know what? They wouldn't answer back. We took donuts up to them. We took donuts to the police department. We took donuts. I bought more donuts and I bought more bread and I bought more food. Man, Jesus used food. Nobody's going to say no to free food. Take food up to them and just like, man, we want to bless you. We keep reaching out to the teachers. They keep ignoring us. We keep going. We're not, man, I'm going to do it until either they respond positively or they send a restraining order to my door saying, stop coming to this school and talking to us.
We're going to blessing us.
Quit blessing us. We're just don't, man. It's so easy to get discouraged. don't, because God is working in such amazing ways here in New England. We're seeing it in our community. We're seeing it in Manchester, and it's from the persistence of living for something outside of your own four walls. And when you do that, man, it's changed. They don't know what to do with it. Honestly, New Englanders don't know what to do with it because they've never seen it. And most
I
of these
don't
people,
think most people know what to do with it, Aaron.
they don't. They don't know what to do when they see somebody that wants to care about them for no reason. And it's opened so many opportunities. And Sandra asked, have we found the community to be open to hear the gospel? Yeah, they are open to hear. People will hear us. They may tell us we're fools afterwards, but they'll listen. But what we found is it's those multiple opportunities and multiple conversations that have led to people like our neighbor who has now come in and become one of the greatest strongest members in our church. That she is just growing, 80 years old. And from the first time she came to a Bible study and she's like, no, that's too much Bible. I was Catholic, can't do that, to now so in love with the Lord. So yes, we have seen this change, but it takes some time. Keep going, keep loving, keep engaging, keep serving. That's don't stop till they run you out of town. Who's going to run you out of town for loving on the town? Nobody. So keep doing it.
That's it. That's it. And I know your wife can cook because I follow her on Facebook.
She was made for the Baptist life because
Oh, I even tried a recipe she had on there. It took so long, but they were the best cookies I ever made.
Oh, that's awesome.
But but I love the lesson that you remind us, I think, of we need to be persistent, and we just keep putting ourselves out there because you proved it. You don't have a building,
Nope, we don't. But
you don't need one.
we don't need one. That's the problem
No.
that people ask us, when you're getting a building. I tell them, I honestly, I pray that we don't get a building because
Yeah.
we're in a place that nobody else has. And we're the church at Town Hall. I mean, they even asked us Town Hall because we had some mail. They're like, do you just want us to put a mailbox up in Town Hall for you so that you can receive mail? Why do I want to get a building? I'm right in the heart of the community. People come to
Right.
pay their taxes and they get to see VBS. They get to see us and we get to share. And man, you don't need a building. You just need a vision to share the gospel.
Amen.
I love that, Aaron, because before we went live, maybe I mentioned, maybe I didn't, but I had written down the passage in Matthew 9 where Jesus saw the crowds of people and harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd and had compassion on them. And it's amazing to me, if I desire to see people the way Jesus sees people, the way he sees me, it's amazing to me how many opportunities come or how many so-called coincidences come because I've prayed, God, let my eyes be open and let me hear you if you have something for me today, but let me see the people the way you see them. And I think that's sort of the heart posture that opens doors in many ways to be able to demonstrate and communicate.
Yeah, it very much is. It comes down to, like you said earlier, they're not going to care about what we know till they know that we care. And if we keep living that out, and I'm not special, my church isn't special. We're just doing what we're supposed to do. And any of us can take this. This isn't anything new. I didn't learn this. I stole it from somebody else. Love the people you're with. Stole it from Jesus. He loved the people he's with. We're just going to keep. I figure if it works for him, it'll work for us. And I do have to make a correction because my wife says I'm going to get my butt beat. Apparently, the lady I was talking about, she's not 80 yet, so I apologize. But I know she's in her upper 70s. But
just to clear the record.
That's right. I want to get that clear because I don't want to get whooped because she will do it. But and guys, this has been awesome. I thank you for letting me share our heart and share what God has done here with fellowship. And man, I'm praying to see a revival, not just here, but across all of New England. That's why we're here. We came up here. I could have stayed in Missouri, where honestly, guys, church is easy. It is. People do church without knowing they're doing. I mean, this, and my heart's here, and we want to see New England go back to what I saw when I did my studies, when I came to Whitfield's Rock, when I came to Enfield, Connecticut, when you walk through Boston. It can happen again. God's done it. It can happen again.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for your humbleness. That is, Ian, you model it, but also it sounds like it's rubbing off on your people, because they don't mind getting right next to you, behind you, to just help with whatever needs to be done in your community. So that's a beautiful thing. So I think it's been very encouraging.
Thank you very much.